I can tell you that we have screened over 25,000 candidates. Candidates came to us and sat in interviews with us. 2,500, 400 is what we hired. The rest of them are going back with a no as an answer. What kind of experience have we given them? Imagine if you have interviewed each candidate at least for half an hour, 45 minutes or an hour, you have 25,000 hours of face time with your prospective candidates. That person may not be suitable today, but may be a great candidate tomorrow when you open a new position. Or maybe when that person is a little more experienced. Or maybe that person is learning something that will be suitable for us. So how are you going to find that right person? It's a two-way thing. We need to, like someone said in the morning today, there's no guarantee that a candidate will show up even after you extended an offer letter. There are instances that I have faced where a position is aging close to a year, and I have 4 or 5 offer declines, and each time it takes 3 months because the person has a notice period before he or she can join us. So that's the amount of time. So if there are recruiters here who are sourcing, if there are recruiting companies that are here sourcing, I would urge you to look at your percentage of candidates that are at least getting interviewed. If you are going to give 10 resumes to your client or to your manager, how many of them are actually getting interviewed? That means there is a delta between what we think is right and what the manager thinks is right. So when that delta comes down is when I think we start finding better candidates for the jobs that we want to hire for.
That's the benefit of going last. So team, I'm Sudhir Mattoo. I'm Director for Talent and IBM India. I also manage skilling globally for our services business. You all have heard a lot. Let me give you like an example which kind of makes it a bit real. Starting from where my friend left it, right? We own AI, Watson is ours. So the biggest question when we go to clients is, so what all do you really use in your own house? And that's a pretty hard thing to kind of, selling client is easy, but deploying it internally is a bit hard. So 2 years back when I came here, one of the tasks we had was, okay, how do we start deploying it now? How do we test it out? So the biggest fear all of us have is, what if it does not work? We have stakeholder, clients, so on and so forth. One of the easiest ways is to call it an experiment, and you can get away with anything, any company you want. So some call it pilot, I like to call them experiments, because pilot still gives you hope something will come out. Experiments, you can always say they went bad. So starting from the screening part, we had a large workforce, including the acquisition, and recruiters, what are you doing? I'm screening. You open the position, you have 5,000 profiles. Now you got to screen. When we deployed our own product, Watson Recruiter, you can put 10,000, 100,000 profiles or applicants in that pool. It will take about 3 seconds to tell you top 10. That's it. So the biggest challenge in the team was, so what do all these recruiters do? What do you do with it? That makes the problem slightly bigger now because you're dealing with HR now. It's not like you're telling somebody else. And I think the opportunity was really, okay, how many of you really can handle social media well? How many of you do you want to become a new job role called influencer? It took us 1 year to define what does even the job look like, and we're still defining it after 2 years. But that gives an opportunity. If you have the skills, the job will shift towards that. Life will never go backwards towards that. Second, we used to have this debate about you have to do your competency models, you have to fill an assessment, you're manageable rated. Imagine our size globally. And we have spent millions and billions of dollars. So at some point, about 2-3 years back, we started a project where we said in people analytics, so what all do I know about you? We do a KYC, right? We don't do that, but in a similar format. We know you went to X number of clients. Jay went to all these projects. Suraj is on this. So we have all the data, but just sit in probably 20 different systems. The code you write is a different application. Every time you move project to project is different. But what if we could read all of it? And that started making an inferred expertise level for us, and I think that's what we use today. That if you show up 20 times at the client and you're doing well in your performances, so you must be a banking consultant, right? It's not that hard. But getting those algorithms right is reality. So we do not have any manager or employee filling any form or assessing anybody. The system tells you. You are level 3 or level 4, and here's the definition, right? Keep moving forward the supply chain. Somebody mentioned the payroll example. She was mentioning that. We are almost a zero-touch operations, which means nobody touches any payroll query in between anything. It just runs. And it sounds very fancy, but do it. It's a 3-year journey. So all the folks that were in there, they all started moving to more of an analyst job. That if we were to take this business problem, how can I contribute my value in HR within the domain of payroll? What should I be thinking about? Every time the law changes, how soon do I get done? So I think those are some of the few examples, right? How we do it. Skilling has been debated. I do it globally. The challenge is the way the construct of skills has changed, right? Who was mentioning it? Shrikant, mainframe is down. I was about to interrupt. No, it's not down. We are still selling it. All the banks in the world are on mainframes. It's not dead. And it's on cloud now, and you can pay as you go. The reality is, in the newer cloud world, the challenge is you have multiple skills converging at one level. Application developers, all of us have hired, trained, exited, full life cycle. The reality is, in full stack, you have probably 4 or 5 different job roles converging into one. So how do you train a person who has been a front-end developer? How do you teach them MongoDB on a cloud environment with a fast speed? And I think that's the hardest part in reskilling people when we say it's not that the whole mindset of learning. And technology is not easy by any standards, right? Now you need to know middleware. If you're on cloud, you are in somebody's cloud, correct? There are only 6 or 7 predominantly, maybe one is your Microsoft, Tencent, right? Everybody's foundry, cloud foundry is different. You need to really understand the toolkit, how does it work? The biggest RMG group comes and says, can we pick these 20 people who are on bench on Azure, can you put them on AWS now? So that's the part of mindset in leadership. How do you change the mindset of leaders and employees and the managers? And I think there's a big work going for us. How do you redesign to employee experience? Which means CIO, finance, business groups, everybody come. Do we really care about this experience? And if yes, are we all willing to play ball to change it? And I think that's the hardest part of, I think amongst everything else, I think experience probably I would rate the highest to manage the change, because it takes a lot. It takes a village almost to change one thing, depending on the size of the lot and how complex you are. But these things are real and we're deploying it, so enjoy the ride. But keep upskilling. I've learned so many things over probably 7 years back. I couldn't care about analytics. Somebody in the department just fetched me that is good enough for me to survive. Today I just need breathe analytics, because the amount of hypothesis you could do, you can compute. It's easier to say. We were still with us. We had analytics India kickoff goal. We took almost first 6 months. Every single hypothesis we collectively thought would work actually failed. After 4 months, my boss is asking me, hey, 4 months, anything? No, great. And it can be quite frustrating, but if you learn the art of perseverance and you continue to find your hypothesis, that really helps you go deep into really what the real issues are and how do you come with solutions which actually give you that. It's very easier to pick a project, but it's very different to deploy a policy which caters to a millennial as well as a baby boomer at the same time. And I think that's the hardest part, is try writing policies which fits all. I think that's the part which I struggle personally. Like I take 3 months sometimes just to go through 3 lines. It doesn't fit. Every time you rethink some stakeholder is missed out, and they rework and rework and rework. But I'm excited. So that would be my story, at least for us to have some context of how much of it is real and how we get this.
Well, honestly, there's enough to chew on, and I would just summarize quickly so that we are all clear on what we spoke, and then we will start asking you to ask your questions. A very interesting round of debate. Suraj spoke about internal referrals, and the important part I think was about aggregating the web stuff, and culminated in you talking about how the aggregation is taking place. So here is a case where you have one company which is high on analytics, high on the usage of analytics, and Suraj was talking about, well, how can we do it? Of course, then you did speak about how can people provide data on EQ and on all of this other stuff, which is currently missing today most of the time. But I'm sure you would definitely say, well, that is a problem that we can solve quickly enough. That said, of course, Grace did speak about the whole concept of candidate experience, and so it was resonated by Srinivas also to say that candidate experience is an important aspect where you're actually going out back to the market and saying, that this is what we are doing. Corporate training is what you spoke about, Rajesh, and you spoke about, the referral, the rehire, the whole concept of homegrown, leaders, and how you're upskilling those people within the system. How you're making sure that you don't have to actually go out and look for talent when the talent is actually sitting within. And gift a career was a great line. I think I will take it back. So with that, I open the forum. Please feel free to ask your question. Do introduce your name, and if you want to ask your question to any of the panelists, please name them. So if we have the mics, can we just share them? And one last thing, how much time do we have? Anybody who's keeping the time for us?
So we can go another 10-15 minutes.
All right, 15 minutes is what we have. So ladies and gentlemen, your questions. Yeah, please. You have a mic? I can give you one.
Thank you, panel. That was a wonderful discussion. And I have a specific question. AI, as artificial intelligence, is already here. I'd like to know any of the organizations who have extensively used and benefited. I heard about the IBM Watson as well, but the other organizations, are they actively using? If they're using AI, they're using for what? Are they using for identification? Are they using for engagement? Are they using for something else? Any of them who've been using, I would like to know.
Don't look at me, said also.
Yeah. So you exclude.
I was excluded of the question.
Yeah, you exclude. Yeah. Anyone? Anyone who wants to take on?
See, what we've done is we take the whole employee life cycle for us, and in fact we do it even before that. So when we go to campuses, being in day one company in the IITs and IISc, we get a lot of data that we get from these employees on who we've selected, what we've done, who have we hired, who we haven't hired, and the reasons why we thought that we don't hire them. The guys that come into the organization after that create a lot of data, which is basically the entire performance appraisal, things that he does, and even when he leaves the organization, we also get a lot of data internally from social media or from the others. So we've got these kind of billion data points that we have on every individual. What we try to do is, we've got an internal model that we work on, which pulls in this data from everywhere and probably looks at things like what's his success rate when he was internally there, how is a person doing that has already left us and joined another organization, how are people that we did not hire in the IITs or external recruitments, how are they doing in different organizations, the skills that we lacked, is he talking about those skills that we lacked? So all these data internally is kind of one pages for individual organizations, and we worked on this entire system internally, so we have it at the back of our hand.
I would quickly add, see, all of us are doing things in bits and pieces. For example, we and Mohit behind has been architect of it, started a chatbot to say for the candidate experience. So starts chatting with the candidate, how are you, blah, blah, blah. And the responses kind of, you can get a feel of how the candidate is feeling. Another thing that, of course, the deep search algorithms where you just put a JD and the system goes and picks up the top 2 or 10 profiles, that is becoming common. But these are all disjointed. But I would like to put a question to you. What happens to organizations like ours? Do we just go and buy Watson Hire, or what other options do others have? So
you want me to recommend product or something?
No.
No, I think you're right in the first part, both the parts. Let me elaborate on the second one more. I think every company is trying out something. I won't find a single company who is not doing something about it. I think the scale and the confidence level is where the question is. I think we are confident because our own product, our own technology, we know exactly how to leverage it. But AI is also something people misread it as a software. Let's go buy, deploy, it won't work. Right? I'll give you my own nervousness. If you go to IBM career page today, we launched, I've been twice soft launching it just to have the confidence in the scale of India. There's something called as Watson Cat Assist. Every time you come for an application, you upload a profile, the system says, hey, you really applied for this job, but there are about 4 more jobs you can apply for, and you can track. And there's a lot of data we are working on right now to see. We really thought we had the best content out there. People are still asking the questions, so we really must suck here and take all the content, report it. So that's a great example of what we know is intuitively what we know. But when you have 50,000 lakh of people playing with your system, it gives you a very different insight. It helps you reflect. Is my policy really articulated enough? And she spoke about it in the right? I think those are the opportunity moments you really want to see. But unless even you try out, you don't know what you don't know. Right? I think that's where I encourage that, there has to be a bit of faith. But once you go in public domains like portals, those become extremely difficult because one software bug can kill you and you have to apologize to the whole world what happened. But that's the other side of when you think put things for external market. Internally you can do anything, it's still fine, but externally just be a bit cautious. Market is a bit unforgiving in terms of if inadvertently something got posted out on your official, any handle or any site, I think you need to be prepared to handle it well.
Yes, please. I hope that answered your question. Right? Yeah. Yes, please. Mic for.
My name is Rajesh. As Jatinder, you were pointing to the reskilling initiatives inside the organization, and Cypress, Mr. Rajesh was also telling about. Is there anything which is being developed as a platform within the organization which is actually doing in terms of AI/ML for the the reskilling or
Upskilling, reskilling.
Yeah.
So he's an expert there.
Yeah, we do actually. One of the things that we make sure, I didn't get your name, please?
Naresh.
Naresh, what we do is we get the manager's skin in the game and the game changes. Because if I need a trouser which is beige in color, 32 in waist size, I need, needle fit. 32? I'm 32. By the way, I'm 50. All right, my wife can't get it for me. It is me who need to walk into the shop. Because I need what I need. So specific that I need this kind of a pocket, this kind of a color, this kind of a zipper or the pockets, So when you are very particular about the requirements of what you want to use daily, think about the talent that he or she's going to fit into a very small but a complex organization. So Naresh, I want manager to make his or her decision, not staffing or sourcing or scouting or recruiting. We will help you, but my friend, You have your skin in the game. You have your stake in the whole game. Because when that happens, you are going to be obsessed with your candidate. You are going to be passionate about your candidate. For you know that you are creating the team. Hence, my upskilling happens less with the candidates, happens more with the managers. As what are my behavioral event interviewing techniques? What is the core technique that I use? How do you scout for the candidates who got the right attitude and aptitude in good balance? How do you align the candidate with the core values and the vision of the organization? All these things, upskilling is very important, and we do extensive boot camping and development programs in order for managers to be in abreast with what is changing and what accordingly they need to change and gain.
So I think picking up from what Rajesh talked about, my personal view, and again I think something that we're doing here in Informatica is not just about coaching and upskilling the manager, but also to start focusing on variety. When I talk about variety, I'm really talking about inclusive interviewing panels that we're really trying to bring in place at Informatica, right? Because it's very important that you really have, I mean, while we're talking diversity, etc., but that's really going to, going to go to the next level only if you have inclusive interviewing panels who are completely educated and who have a mindset to really pick the right talent the way we want it to be. So that is something that I wanted to share with all of you.
Thanks, Rajesh. I wanted to share an example on tailoring first. It's on the lighter side. I get my clothes custom stitched with the tailor, and one of my friends said, "Hey, there's a new shop, Create. Go try it out." I said, "No, they will never get it right." After a lot of resistance, I finally went. So I'm thinking, like, what's different? So Taylor Thomson takes the measurement and says, "Let's go to the screen now." So okay, you go to the screen, you actually pick up everything. This is my cuffling style, this is my collar, this is my button, I need this space, I need the names here. All of it happens. And I said, "Okay, now what happened?" He said, "No, go home." What? They just courier it back to you. I said, "No, I want to try it." They said, "If you want to, you can come back, but we bet you it will be right." And they got it right the first time. And that to me is experience. A skeptical person going into shopping, which you believe is not going to work for you, and then you have a convert like me. That was the lighter side. But I think what happens in the journey, I'll give you our perspective, we call it magic in a nice way. When you do the skilling, reskilling, they are not like a two-day business. Like, it's not you come here, we teach you something and you go back. Some of the programs can take you 12 weeks. And if you are working on the project and still learning something new, it might take you a good 4, 5, 6 month journey. So how do you keep a track, right? I don't know how many folks from learning are here, right? I think the biggest. Rajesh is from learning. So how much time do you spend chasing? You got to complete this. I need to send this quarterly report and I'm still behind. And it happens to all of us, right? I think, and what if, the question was, what might we do that there is some kind of a magic happening wherever you perform? If you are a seller, your applications are very different. If you are a developer, your applications that you work on are very different. How do you provide that nudge and little genie come in and say, "Hey, Sudhir, you seem to be last 2 weeks not working on it, hope all is well." How do you provide those nudges and you go, "Damn, I'm behind." Nobody's chasing you, but you have that comfort, and that to us is the experience. How do you provide the support as you go along in the work environment, in the context of where you are?
First we have to set up
I think that makes a lot of difference. What all would you do? And I'm just talking from the role of HR, because we do have the stewardship of managing the whole life cycle of an employee.
Right. I know that I have to go for the last question, but as a moderator, I have to say something to Naresh also. So, anybody from Wipro here, please? Anybody from Wipro? Ah, there you are. So, I was in a different moderation. I generally moderate these to gather ideas, and we were discussing the same thing: upskilling. Wipro, the gentleman said that they have created a platform over 2 years Now what this does is that it maps like I'm sitting in chair A, project A, and my aspiration is to go to project B. So the system immediately shows me the skill gaps. Says if you want to do project B or do this job, these are the skill gaps. You will have to upskill yourself here, 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 here. Let's say 3 things. Let's say I'll take the example of any cybersecurity certification. Just giving a small example. Now I decide that this is what I want to do, and I start taking online courses which are also given by the system, and I start taking online courses, which is fine, which is what most of us do. But Wipro's gone beyond that. After I do the course, somebody really put their brains on this and got it working, and I think you should be selling the solution to all of us, if nothing else. Right? So, Naresh, does that answer? So we have to get there someday, or maybe beyond. Last question, ladies and gentlemen. Of course. Hi. Oh, sorry. We have 2 last questions. The lady has to ask the last question. No. Go first, please.
Good to be with the great HR leaders here, and I'm on the business side. My name is Rajesh Pawar. I work for a company called DMI. My question is on someone mentioned about the hiring time, 3 months. Why don't we bring it back to 2 weeks? So when I work with my US counterpart, it's a 2 weeks notice period. I get to hire quickly, I get to fire if I don't like the client. Why in India we are having 3 months of hiring period? Why don't you HR team work together and have your own, strategy to do that? It just doesn't help in the business. If a guy resigns in my team, there's no point in keeping him for 3 months.
Sir, I think you can do it in 1 day also. But I think, is the system, the ecosystem ready for that? The manager might require for you to hire ASAP, but if you give it to him in 1 day, will it be at the cost of other things that you have not put in place?
So why not 4 weeks or 2 weeks?
Very much possible, absolutely. I've got colleagues on my right and left that they say that they do it in 1 day and 2 days.
So let me
26, not 1 day.
So let me kind of add, at Informatica we have a month's notice, right? And it also depends on the kind of talent that you're letting go and the criticality of that talent, right? So that's point number 1. But taking a personal example, right, of the HR team that we have here, I could let go of people in 1 day because we have something called a business continuity plan. So, and that's something that we're trying to constantly, learn and build and improve and engage and cross-pollinate. Because once you kind of strengthen that, right, and we are good at business continuity, then you probably can let go in 1 day. However, is business really prepared and ready for that in a volatile kind of an environment? That's a question to ask.
I'll add one thing on this serious note. I think part of it is also planning. I don't know if your attritions are typically trend, how deep dive do you do into it. You almost have a trend that I use these kind of resources in this month, and typically whenever you pay your bonus out, the next month would be the fantastic month. So all of us have the trends, right? Why is it a rocket science every time people come in April? Oh, I lost people. Really? Isn't it true for last 5 years? So you almost bake into your plans. If you know that this, the hard part now becomes how much commonality do you have in the job roles? Like if you have a large scale, you can almost predict I lose X time in Y month at this rate. You can go ahead and hire ahead. We do a lot of places where we have a lot of predictability and the confidence level. And our confidence level in 50 to 60% will take the swing shot, will make the offer, right? But I think if you set yourself on that mission for next year, you'll actually accomplish. But if you give it to your HR team and everybody else to solve it for you, it doesn't tie back into the metrics they are solving for, because they can say I spent 1 month's resource, 1 month to offer. And like here an example, 4 offer declines 1 year, nobody's there in this, right? I think part of it is from the business perspective, how much can you plan, what kind of risk are you willing to take? I think the teams will provide you the solution. I think, but you have to decide, I'm going to make this big bet, I will bring it down, right? We were at about 118, we are about 26 now, right? And last 1.5 years, right? But somebody has to stick the neck out, we are going to make it happen. And if you are the business sponsor, then I think the HR teams in your team would absolutely be willing to help.
So my point is more as an, at an India level, right, at a national level. Why this is a policy? We still have like a 2 months, 3 months.
And ASCOM will have to make it up. The government definitely cannot make rules around
No, there are some labor laws and rules.
So for us it's even worse, it's 6 months to hire a pilot.
6 months, right?
to hire a pilot. Sorry,
For us, it's 6 months to hire a pilot. And that's DGCA rules.
So, Srinivas, you would like to add something to the discussion? We are sitting in this thing. All right, he's got a bad throat also.
Questions that were asked are largely not my area of expertise, because we have not done anything with machine learning or artificial intelligence in our office at this point of time. We are thinking about it. There are some, like he says, there are some experiments going on about it, but we have not done anything in that space. In terms of this entire automation and the process that is changing from where I have seen to where it is now and where it is predicted to be in the near future, that's the only constant. It's going to change. It is going to change. And what does not change is our fundamentals of how we recruit, because that's what we're going to teach the machines, and it is what we're going to teach the artificial intelligence to predict. If you look for somebody on LinkedIn, on the right side you'll see similar profiles, like whatever you're viewing. Right? How does that come from? So how do I, if I'm looking at my own internal database, I'll give you a small example. How do we write .NET? We put a dot and write net. But if I search for that, I find maybe 200, 300 profiles. But if I write the complete word DOTNET, I'm finding another 200 resumes. So that is where the intelligence has to come from, that not all candidates are going to write their resumes or their skills in the same way. There are some acronyms which are case sensitive. Okay, capital letter, small letter, dots, and then versions. That some of them are case sensitive. If you're not following that, then you lose out. So that's intelligence that must come from within. It's our learning that we pass on to the machine, that we pass on to the software to go and identify and throw it back at us. So I think it's largely no matter what technologies we use, no matter how fast we go, these are tools that will enable us to do things faster, probably more efficiently, but they will only do what we tell them to do. So it is up to us to direct them in the right source and get them to find what they want.
Yeah, and before we take that question, just a small word, and that's my personal view, again, from what Suraj said. I think the next big disruption that is likely to happen is that we will Uberize talent. That means that we will not be hiring people in companies, especially for projects where they need to deliver something, right? That is already happening. It started slowly, but it is going to take off. Very soon we'll find people who will not be your employees but doing work for you. The idea is a human to produce work rather than to hire a human. So that's going to be the difference. Where we don't see a disruption is a platform to aggregate that. And I think that's either a next startup idea or that is where somebody will come up with, you still have platforms which are doing it, but they are very specific to different technologies, etc., etc. I think the next big thing will be, okay, you throw out a project, you say this is what I want to do, somebody does it for you, you don't even see the person's face, don't even know the person's name, the person gets paid, you get the product, you get the output. I think that's where we are going to move to, and that's my personal view, and everyone's nodding, so I presume the biggies know better. All right, question, the last one.
I'm Rashmi and I come from the education sector. So we are people actually who give the talent to the industry. I take care of the placements at SIA Engineering. So for me, it's from the whole discussion from today, this is what I got. Like we're heading towards contract and people, like you rightly said, coming and then going off. So the gentleman over here said that maybe why don't we have people being fired at a very shorter point and then being rehired again. So my question is, so if it's going to be that way, then why would anyone want like Wipro going towards that, doing some courses and then seeing which opening is open for them? Why should any company take the trouble of that? I mean, you take people, they're working, they deliver, they don't deliver, you just throw them out and then you again take new people who meet your set of talent. So this is just a question out of curiosity.
I'll just give you my perspective. I don't think so that's going to happen in a hurry, especially in India. And I'll tell you the reason why. Because if you look at the entire cultural dynamics behind society, you look at your parents and the assurance of having, and I was just talking to Naresh and the others about this, of having a permanent job versus saying, where are you employed? I'm not employed. I'm a contract worker. So the stigma around contract work itself is something like in the earlier ages when I was young, it was ages ago, but it was a pride to work in a public sector company versus a private sector company. So I think till that change happens, till people say it's fine if you don't have a job, if you're in a startup, I'm still ready, I'm proud to say you're my son or my daughter, you can get married probably without having a card, and the whole societal thing around it, if that doesn't change, I think contract is not going to work in India. My opinion, personal opinion.
Thank you for asking the question. I think just with the scale, when you measure countries like Singapore, Malaysia and India population, right? Even if 5% India swing, it's a big swing, right? So if you see some of the platforms where you actually can go do stuff, I think when we grew up, the next generation does not have the same problem. What challenges my parents faced, I did not have the same. So I do think there's an opportunity. Would it be as widespread as what Suraj was mentioning? I don't think so. Because a lot of it is also outbound services we provide from India. Right? You don't have a lot of R&D culture in India. A lot of it is a service economy that we provide services. The reality is you're bound by the contracts what client gives you. So if you have an Indian ecosystem, which is India players, all the digital economy that's kind of, or startup economy that's coming up, I think they do not have the same rules of the game what some of the corporations like us, where the contracts are sitting in some other queue and we are providing a service. I think it's a very different relationship. But if you take that startup ecosystem, can they jump onto cloud directly? That's what we call cloud native. Answer is yes. Flipkart, Udaan, all these are Indian born. And I think there's Oyo is another great example. I think that's the piece where you start thinking, where is it applicable the most? Who can leverage it the most? Right? Internal works for us, we do it. We call it Liquid as a program, where anybody can do it part of the project, and that becomes another good way to kind of test your own skills and build it out. But I do think we all need to start paying attention to it, because if the more millions you talk to, I think the biggest outset is they want to do great work, but they're not looking for like staying 10 years. Like every graduate hire class when you go attend, hey, how long do you think? Hey, maybe 2 years. And now I've gotten used to smiling on it. Hey, wow. And 5 years back, probably I would frown. Seriously, these guys want to, what did we hire, right? And I think we need to change more than anybody else to get used to the new norm. It's all right as a society, right? And I think that's a gradual shift that will happen. The more we think its metros are forward-looking, and if you see some of the work that happens in tier 3 cities, I think it's phenomenal. I think we have to set norms as we see the world. I think that's changing. I think paying attention to topics like this is important, because this is where the future will go. Now the question where you are going with is that's the speed. think that's the hard part to figure it out. You can't always calibrate each year how much of it does it impact me. Because at the end of the day, if 5 years from now, all the new millennials want to work in gig economy, not in a full-time environment, then we as an organization need to take the call, how much of what kind of work do we perform from India? And I think that's the real challenge that we see. Why we're interested in this topic is not because how we want or clients want, it's the talent. If the talent's not going to come in this form, either we need to change our clients, which is not going to happen, or we need to find a different place to perform the similar work where we can service the clients. And I think those are the 3 different dimensions need to come together to really make a decision. But it does not worry us, but it's one of those things that you want to keep an eye on because it has a large implication if people are not willing to come. And I'll tell you, right, if you take site reliability engineering, this is one of the container services skills, those of you are in technology, you would imagine, Rajesh, that US has 15 day notice. Your average job posting for SRE in US is about 143 days. India is 97, which means on an average, India could fill a site reliability engineer in 97 days. But if you go to US, 143 days. So that's the part where we need to figure it out. Now, we used to make centers, we had this thing, we'll make a center here, there. We are changing the landscape of the leadership team saying, okay, if you want really this kind of a skill, and it's a cloud lab, we have an East Coast company, we have offices now in West Coast. Because if you wanted the developer community, it's in West Coast. Showing the flanky office in Manhattan, 54th Street, is not really going to help you. It's great for consulting, banking. But if you want developers, please take your office and move back to San Francisco, and that's what we did. And I think that's the stark reality which worries us, that if you don't pay attention to this and the talent does not come in, how would you perform the work? So I just wanted to illustrate with an example. So these are real challenges, even in US or India, it doesn't matter. Talent does get to decide what they do and how they do it. Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, Dada is already standing here, giving me those looks. Thank you for being a wonderful audience, and thank you for participating wholeheartedly in this discussion. And I thank each one of you. Lovely insights.
Thank you for being a moderator.
My pleasure always, and I'm sure we did look after you. Thank you very much.